wonderful to be home in Portland, of course. I've done about 18 cities so far on the first leg of the $100 Startup Tour, and just great to be in Portland. So a couple of days ago I was in Phoenix, and I saw that the speaker going before me was the lead singer of Twisted Sister. Pretty awesome. I mean, when was the last time you thought of Twisted Sister? Like, but still, I thought it was awesome that he was my opening act, so to speak. And then came home to Portland, did morning TV this morning, and I went into the studio and saw this sign that was like, segment 1, Chris Guillebeau. Segment 2, summer chicken salads. And the broadcaster comes on to do this little preview, and he's like, our main feature today, we'll be talking all about wonderful things you can make in your kitchen, featuring chicken. But first, we'll hear from Chris Guillebeau. That'll change your life. And I was like, great, thank you for keeping me humble, Portland. We have so many great people here with us tonight. Among others, we have a lot of folks from the World Domination Summit Action Team. You guys are here, would you just stand up? Last year we brought about 500 people to Portland. Hey guys, thanks for being here. This year we're bringing the whole world, hence the title. Awesome. Somebody else over there, what's up? Great. We also have a number of people who are actually in the $100 Startup. So I want to say hello to Michael Hanna and Mary Ruth. You guys can stand up. If you've read the book, they're the Mattress Lot Story, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. Cool. Michael, I've been telling your story all across the country, so if I've gotten some of the details wrong, we're just going to go with those details. Thanks. Is Sarah Young here yet? Sarah, hi Sarah. This is the owner and founder and owner of Happy Knits here in Portland, so good to see you. Sarah, anyone else from the book who's here with us tonight that I have neglected to mention? Awesome. And is there anyone who's joining us tonight who has traveled more than an hour or two to be here? I know Portland's an amazing city, but is there anyone else? Yes? Where are you from? Eugene. Just Eugene. You keep saying it like it's so. I'm like, 2 hours is great. Yes? Richmond, Virginia. I was actually in Virginia. Awesome. Okay, great. Back over here? Yes?
Canada, where I extended my stay just to hear you.
Oh, great. Oh, wow. And we can't even give you a chair. I'm sorry. Anyone else on this side of the room? Yes?
Baker City.
Baker City. Awesome. Great. I don't know where that is. Singapore? What? Singapore? Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Derek Sivers. Great. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Over here? Anyone else? Yes? New York. Great. I was in New York, too. That's awesome. That's great. Welcome to Portland. Anyone else? Great.
Dubai.
Dubai? Great. Very international gathering here in Portland. That's amazing. Wonderful. So here's what I'd like to do tonight. I'm aware that many of you are standing, and if you've never been to one of these kinds of things before, I don't intend to lecture for a long period of time. And this is ostensibly a book reading, but I'm going to assume that all of you are literate. And if you want to read the book, you can do so yourself. So, no $100 Startup bedtime story here at tonight. I will tell you a little bit about the book. I'll tell you why I wrote it, a couple of stories from the book, what I hope will come out of it, my goals for the book. And then we'll do what I call questions and attempted answers. It'll be awesome tonight because it's Portland. And then we'll do a little signing. We'll hang out. We'll have fun. I think some people have brought cupcakes. There wasn't a cupcake table, but maybe the cupcakes are just in the audience. So it's like an Easter egg. You find one, you eat it. And then I always say, really the best thing about any Art of Nonconformity meetup or event, or now any $100 Startup event, is not really this formal space where I'm kind of, projecting or presenting something to all of you, but it really is everyone else who comes out. And so I encourage you, even if you're a shy, introverted person like I am, be sure to meet someone before the night's over, because everyone here is awesome. All these people who come from far away and all these people who live in the beautiful city of Portland, be sure you say hi to them. And now I'm wondering if there's a copy of my book I can steal from someone temporarily. Thank you. Probably get it back. So, first things first, whenever you begin a big project, or whenever you start a blog, or start a business, or start something that's going to require a lot of your time and energy and investment, I always think it's important to define your own success. I always think it's important to decide for yourself what success is going to look like, as opposed to letting someone else kind of impose that definition on you. And in the case of writing a book, it's really important to understand to whom you're writing. It's really important to understand, first of all, what is the message that I wish to communicate, and then, who is the intended audience? Who do I hope to reach with this, as well as perhaps, who is not necessarily, the best fit for the message. And in the case of the $100 startup, when I began the research process and then the writing process, there's this long tradition of authors complaining about their publishers. But unfortunately, I had a great relationship with Crown Random House, so it's not so good for drama or reality TV. But I received some really good advice from my editor and partners there. And my editor said, Chris, you use this word entrepreneur a lot. And maybe in some of the circles that you travel in, people understand what you mean by that. But for a lot of mainstream America, they have their own understanding of entrepreneurship. And, not everyone necessarily wants to be an entrepreneur. And some people are intimidated by that concept. And because some people think that being an entrepreneur means starting a big company and, maybe moving to Silicon Valley or, putting together this very comprehensive business plan and begging for money, from angel investors or venture capital, or, this very, extended view of startup, right? That's what people think when they hear that word entrepreneur. And when a lot of people even think about going into business, when they think about being a business person, a lot of people have very traditional viewpoints about that. And a lot of people think that going into business means things like wearing a suit and playing golf and voting Republican, and that's what it means, to be in business, right? So that's not, in any way what the $100 startup is about. And the $100 startup is essentially about freedom. That's the primary message of the $100 startup, is to help those people who want to achieve more freedom in their lives. And the book is written firstly for those who are dissatisfied with their work. And it's for those who want to make a change and want to do something different. Whether they're in a job that they hate and are just trying to, find some way out, or maybe they don't hate their job, but they like the idea of doing something different, or maybe even they really like their job, but they like the idea of establishing some additional security, of having a side income, and at least having the opportunity or the option, to do something different. So the problem is, there's a lot of people like that out there. They're already motivated somewhat. They already have this desire. They don't need another resource that just kind of gives them a pep talk. They're ready to take the next step, but they don't know what the next step is. And they don't necessarily know what to do. And so my goal with the $100 startup was to provide a very specific resource and to provide 300 pages of next steps based on a data-driven model. To create a blueprint that people could follow to create that freedom, to, achieve their dreams. So that's the first group. And the second group is all of those people who are struggling to enter the job market. Perhaps for the first time, those people who are right out of college, or people of all ages, who are struggling to compete in a difficult job market. So as you know very well, it's not unusual at all in Portland or in many other cities to go to the coffee shop and your barista who makes your coffee has a master's degree or higher sometimes, And we meet all kinds of people with all kinds of advanced education who aren't able to find work in the field in which they trained. And it used to be, when we would meet someone like this or hear a story like this, we would think, this person has just kind of fallen on hard times, or we might even be thinking, in the back of our minds, that they just need to try harder, They haven't really, tried to find a job, They need to hustle more, and they need to use LinkedIn. They need to, go on all these job interviews and polish their resume, even though no one's ever going to read their resume. That's what they're supposed to do. Last year, right here in Portland, there was a job announcement for entry-level receptionist position, paid $12 or $14 an hour, with no benefits, and more than 300 people, showed up to apply for that job, and many of them were college graduates. So essentially, everyone is either qualified or overqualified, for this position. And I would suggest when we have a situation like that, and where, so many people are, just struggling to either enter the job market at all, or they're underemployed, they're not able to find a good job that really offers, opportunity for advancement and growth. I would suggest that something is really fundamentally wrong with the system. And it's not going to be an educational solution that fixes it, because many of these people are already highly educated. It's not really going to be a political solution that fixes it. No matter who's running the country, there's still going to be a lot of people in this situation. And so I think the best answer for many of them, perhaps many of us, is through creative self-employment. And it is through kind of taking matters into our own hands and creating something that's meaningful, creating something that's significant, where they can actually go and earn a good living from that. And I don't think that that's a negative thing at all. I think it's a positive thing. As more and more people are embracing, micro-entrepreneurship, as more and more people are finding, creative ways of making a living and thinking differently about risk, because risk used to be, or entrepreneurship used to be seen as this very risky thing. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you might achieve some reward from it, but there was definitely going to be a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of uncertainty. You'd have to, borrow capital. You'd have to wait a long time on an unproven idea. But now what many people are doing, through the $100 startup model and independently, is they're starting quickly, in 30 days or less. They're not spending a lot of money. They're getting to market, almost immediately, and then they're responding, to that. And so probably the best way to tell you more about the $100 startup model is to explain more about some of the people who are in the book and how we came about creating this process. So when I began the research for the book, we cast a really wide net. We said we want to hear from people from all over the world, different backgrounds, all walks of life, who had all started different kinds of businesses. So very diverse, but we also had some specific characteristics that you had to meet to be in the study. So first characteristic was your business had to make at least $50,000 a year in net income. And a lot of the businesses that we looked at, did much more than that. There's a lot of multiple six-figure businesses, several million-dollar businesses, but we chose $50,000 a year as kind of a base level. So you have to be doing at least this, so it's not a hobby, it's something that's serious. You also have to be willing to provide full financial disclosure about how much money your business brings in and how much it costs to start the business, and what went well along the way and what did not go well. We had those specific characteristics so that we could create a specific resource. I wanted to be able to say, so-and-so did this business, and here's how much it cost, and here's the result and the outcome, as opposed to just saying, they started this business, it's doing well, whatever. We had a bias towards businesses that had fewer than 5 employees. And a lot of people operated the business just as a solopreneur, or just one person running the business, which is the model that I use. And some of them worked with different, contractors or assistants, and others didn't. And lastly, you had to operate the business, for the most part, using no technical skills or no highly advanced skills that you couldn't otherwise somehow acquire. So not a lot of advanced engineering, that kind of thing. I heard from someone who started a coffee shop, for example, and before he started that coffee shop, he was originally from Seattle, he moved to South Carolina, he kind of learned as he went along to do that. So that's an example of acquiring a skill. On the other hand, I heard from someone in Croatia who said he had taught himself dentistry. He said he was a DIY dentist. I said, that's pretty cool, but I'm not going to put it in the book. I don't want to start something, I might get bad comments on my blog about that or something. So no special skills or no skills, that couldn't be somehow acquired. So we received more than 1,500 case studies that we started with, and then from there I kind of narrowed it down to the 50 to 70 stories that I felt were the most interesting or the most poignant or the most reflective of the times in which we live. And then my challenge there was, first of all, to tell these stories and hopefully to bring, honor to these people who had personally inspired me and I felt had much to share with the world. But then not only to tell their stories, but hopefully to craft, a narrative around that, and hopefully to craft a blueprint, a roadmap that other people could use to follow in their own way. So all kinds of interesting people. The book actually begins with the story of Michael Hanna, who's here with us tonight. And Michael owns Mattress Lot, which is in Northeast Portland, I believe, right? And Michael's background, he was a sales executive for many years, had a good career, lots of experience, did a good job. And one day, a few years ago, he was laid off. And, when this first happened, it was a shock for Michael and his family. But Michael figured, okay, I'll just, get another job, right? Because, I have good skills and good experience. And so Michael did everything he was supposed to do and, lined up these interviews and used LinkedIn. Did you use LinkedIn, Michael? Yes, you did. No, it didn't work out. But LinkedIn is great, really. No. And what Michael discovered, it's like there's a lot of other people, looking for work. And his industry was in a decline, just like many industries. And so there weren't a lot of companies hiring. And a friend of his who owned a furniture store called him and said, I know this is kind of random, but I have a truckload of mattresses that I don't want. And maybe you could take these things and sell them, on Craigslist or eBay or something. And, Michael calls up Mary Ruth, who's here tonight. He says, honey, it's a long story, but can I buy a truckload of mattresses? And Mary Ruth says something like, whatever, that's fine. Just stay in the house for a while. I don't know if you actually said that or not. So, instead of just selling them kind of piecemeal, Michael had noticed there was a car dealership that had gone out of business, and there's this real estate that was available. There's no other car dealership moving into town, during the recession. So Michael contacted a developer. He was able to get this space on the cheap, and he didn't really know anything about mattresses, before starting this business. And his whole impression was that, mattress stores were kind of seedy, high-pressure places. You wouldn't really want to go there. So Michael decided to create an unconventional mattress shop, and they opened the world's first mattress delivery by bicycle service. So if you live in Portland, this is a testimonial for Michael. Michael personally will deliver your bike, deliver your mattress on his bike. You can go on YouTube and see these videos, which are pretty awesome. So, anyway, a couple of years go by, and now Mattress Lot is a successful business, and Michael talks about how, he never would have expected, a couple of years ago that he'd be running a mattress shop. But he really appreciates, the whole family appreciates kind of the value that they bring to the community and, this unconventional career that he stumbled on. And the other thing that Michael shared with me, which I'm sharing with his permission, is, he said, when I got laid off, it was a shock, but it kind of turned into one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I'm actually glad that happened. And as I traveled the world, first the U.S. and Canada and many other countries, I heard a lot of statements and stories kind of like Michael's. And not everyone had been laid off, not everyone had gone through this shock, but for the most part, no one had a strategic plan, of building their business. And no one wrote a 60-page business plan that no one would ever read. And for the most part, no one went to the bank, to beg for money. And they all kind of, began their project unexpectedly or kind of adapted as they went along. And I talked with Susanna Conway in England, who was a former journalist. And Susanna was also a photographer, and she started by offering a photography course to her friends and family. And everyone signed up. And Susanna wasn't a famous blogger. She didn't have, thousands of followers on Twitter or anything. But she did have a Facebook account. And so then she offered her photography course, to her friends on Facebook, and everyone signed up. And then she started, offering this on a broader basis, and she created another course. And now Susanna earns more than $90,000 a year, from these courses, more than she made as a journalist. So when I talked with Susanna, and everyone, my question to her was, what did you not foresee when you were starting up? And Susanna said to me, I didn't know I was starting up. I thought I was doing something fun, and then it kind of turned into this business. I talked with a guy named Vinnie Lewis, who's originally from Ireland, and now he travels the world as a professional language hacker, learning different languages for himself and teaching other people, through this method that he's devised. And at the end of one of our conversations, I said to Vinnie, is there anything else I should know about your business? And Vinnie said, yes. Please stop calling it a business. I'm just doing something that I love, doing something that I enjoy, that I'm very passionate about, but I'm fortunate to have found a way to connect that with something that other people also value. I found a way to connect that passion with something that other people find useful and interesting. And that's how, he was able to start a business. The last I heard, Vinny earns more than $70,000 a year. through this language hacking course that he does. And over and over in different ways, with different models and paths and different kinds of businesses, this is the collective story that I heard, the collective story of doing something that you love, but focusing on how that thing can be helpful to others and how it can be useful. And so the magic formula of success that we look at in the book is passion plus usefulness. Something that you are excited about or skilled in that is also valuable and interesting to other people. And everyone in the book, for the most part, did this without spending a lot of money. Almost everyone was under $1,000, and about half of the stories were $100 or less. I think the average startup cost was something like $432, but we decided that $432 startup didn't sound so good. $100 startup. But the point is, not a lot of money. And also, for the most part, by using the skills that they already had. So, for example, I talked with Sarah Young, who's here tonight, and I asked Sarah, when you opened Happiness, you didn't have a lot of background, in business, and you weren't an entrepreneur, to use that word again. And Sarah said to me, well, I wasn't an entrepreneur, but I was a shopper, and I knew what I wanted. It didn't exist. So I thought I wasn't the only one, and that's how Sarah created Happiness. And if you've seen the video book trailer for the $100 startup, Sarah's in that trailer in her store, and she's talking about the moment or the day when her store did its first $1,000 day. And she talks about calling her dad on the phone and saying, Dad, we did a $1,000 day. And she talks about just how exciting that was and how empowering that was for herself and for the business. We made that trailer a few months ago, and right before the book came out, I talked with Sarah, just as I talked with Michael and others, to see if there's any updates. And I heard this story of how Happy Knits kind of hosted this knitting festival, that came to town, which is a very Portland thing, of course. And all these people came to town, and Happy Knits had their first $10,000 day. So again, focused on value and focused on helping people and the connection between passion and usefulness. That's really what it's all about. So I said in the beginning that it's really important to define your own success. And for me, the book will be successful if it does three things. And the first thing is the combination of inspiration with action. And it's my hope that people will read the book and not only say, I read this book and I liked it, I hope they'll read it and say, I read this book and then I took action on it. And I went and I did something differently. I created my first, little startup, or, I opened my first, online storefront, or I created some kind of consulting service, or if I had an existing business, there was something in it that I used and I applied that. That's what I really hope, because I write a lot about freedom. And the question I have for all of us is, do you have enough freedom in your life? And are you doing, something that you love, something that you find meaningful most of the time? Because all of us have things that we have to do from time to time, and that's okay. But most of the time, are you doing something that you enjoy, something that you find meaningful and that helps other people as well? Because freedom and responsibility are connected and correlated. So are you giving enough? Do you feel like you're making the world a better place? And the second thing that I hope will come out of the book is education for all those people who are in that place where they want to make a change. They're ready to take the next step. They don't know what it is. So again, it's my goal to provide the 300 pages of next steps and all kinds of information about, how to decide, if your idea is marketable, and how do you find, your customers, your clients, and how do you do a product launch, and how do you decide about pricing, and all these kind of questions, that people have. Again, try to make it very specific with lots of checklists and examples and models, all based on these extensive case studies that we did. And the third and final thing that I hope will come out of the book, I hope it will create a sense of urgency among those who read it. And I hope it will create a sense, of immediate action taking. Not just thinking and not just planning and not just, some kind of action taking sometime, but immediate action taking. And I think it's really vital to recognize that we live in this beautiful, remarkable age where all of us can come to Powell's and talk about, how to start a business for $100 or less. And not just, locally, we can also connect with people, from all over the world, based on shared values and shared ideals and a shared worldview. And this is very unique. It's fantastic, but it's also very unique. Jolie and I used to live in West Africa on a hospital ship, docked mostly off the coast of Sierra Leone and Liberia. We were there for about 4 years, and I could drive my Land Rover in the interior of Sierra Leone. And if you go into the interior of West Africa to the village, almost everyone is an entrepreneur. And almost everyone is kind of like working for themselves because they have to. There's no formal economy. Everyone is buying and selling and making their way. So, these kinds of micro businesses are not new. They've always been around. But what has changed is, if you're in the village in West Africa, for the most part, you can only buy and sell with other people in that village, or other people at least in the nearby area, for the most part. But yet, all of us, have this opportunity to connect with people, again, based on those shared values and ideas and shared hobbies and interests, and it doesn't matter where those people live. And so it's a beautiful, remarkable thing, and that's why I feel like, we must do honor to that. We must take action because life is short. And something that Steve Jobs said before his death, he said, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And to me, all of the stories in the book, everything that kind of came about to make the $100 startup possible, as well as many of the stories, in our community, all of these people are living testaments to that ideal. They're living testaments to that ideal that our lives can count for something, and we can do, what we love most of the time. We can make a good income at it, but we can also make the world a better place. And so, that's what my hope is, that more people will do that, more people will focus on that. And I feel fortunate to be a small part, of facilitating that and of connecting with people. So people often ask me about this question of inspiration, because I have this project of visiting every country in the world, and they say, well, what inspires you? And it's very easy for me to kind of reflect back and say, well, I'm fortunate to be connected with a lot of remarkable people, and when I hear their stories, I'm inspired by them, and I hope to take action on them as well, just as they take action on other people's stories. So once again, I'm so thrilled to be back in Portland. I greatly appreciate Powell's for welcoming all of us, and I thank all of you for sharing the space together with me.